Okay.
Welcome to a wonderful event here on Zoom with Carnegie-Stout Public Library. We are excited to have Stephanie Funke do a program on Find Your Zen with the Art of Zentangle with Stephanie Funke. So I'm just going to hand it over to Stephanie.
So hi, everyone. It's really great to be with you. And I'm so glad to see so many faces and so many names and just the opportunity from the library and for Angie to get us started tonight. So thanks again for these opportunities and for showing up. And like she said, if you have any questions at any time, just feel free to ask, because really that's what Zentangle is all about. We're just here to give you a few simple suggestions and then to let you just take it and put pen to paper and just have fun. So if you're nervous at all, you probably can tell because your shoulders might be tight or your jaw might be tight. So sometimes through the evening, I might say, okay, notice your tongue. Is it pushing into the back of your teeth? Are you really straining? So Zentangle is just about really helping you unlock or find that artist that is within you, your own creativity. And so it's really been a gift for me to help just people show with a few repetitive strokes. We have a pattern, but if you want to diverge, you want to leave the pattern, by all means do so. We encourage that. We encourage rebellious behavior on the canvas. So just have fun with it, please. And Maria Thomas is one of the founders of Zentangle, and she has a few phrases that she uses quite often, she and her partner Rick, and they say, there are no mistakes, only opportunities. And as I said, we really encourage rebellious behavior because that's you, and that's what is best to see. And the other thing is, anything is possible one stroke at a time. And I know that Maria is often encouraging people with whom she's working, just give it a chance. Don't give up on it. See what happens. It might not be what you had in mind, but it might be a great surprise. So I'm just giving you these few introductory remarks to try to put you at ease and to say that we'll just have a great time, and that if you have any questions, by all means, ask. And lastly, just as part of the introduction, if you're new to Zentangle, this I did not do, but sometimes it gives a little clue. You can see the repetition. You can see the patterns. Now, this was done by Maria Thomas, one of the founders of Zentangle. But if you notice the letter Z and how she's repeated that, and you can see similar patterns as you go around. And so if you take it apart one little piece at a time, you have this beautiful piece that you might be saying, oh my gosh, I could never do that. But as we take it apart and we do one thing at a time, you certainly probably could give it a pretty good shot. So that's what we'll do, and I just really hope you enjoy it. And so go ahead, and do you have some scratch paper around or a sketch pad, everybody? Okay, just use that right now. And I believe you either have a pencil or you got a pencil in your kit. I'm going to use this little Zentangle pencil, but just some graphite. We're just going to do a little warm up, and don't worry about right or wrong in the warm-ups at all. And what I'd like you to do first is just hold this pencil kind of on its side, so I'm not pointing down, and just let yourself move about the paper. Just make some lines and don't worry about where they intersect. Just do that a few times. Just start to relax a little bit. And then again, we're just going to kind of go all over this paper with just, it's like taking piano lessons, and we start with some scales. We just want to loosen up. So I'm still keeping my pencil on the side, and I'm going to ask you now to just scribble like a rectangle. Just let it go. Move your wrist quickly. And then I want you to turn your paper and go the other way and do the same thing right next to it. Same thing, you're just strokes going in the opposite direction. A nice rectangle. And it's meant to go quickly and there's no right or wrong. And then let's flip it again and let's just work our way across the page doing that. A few more rectangles. I want you to get familiar with using that pencil on its side a little bit. And I also want you to just to relax and loosen up. And so do that again. And you don't have to wait for my, just turn your paper, just make some nice strokes back and forth. And the other thing that's happening right now, without you even knowing about it or worrying, is you're creating a really cool pattern. Just by doing this warm up across the page, you've made this weave as you go side by side. So, as you look at it now, there it is. That's a really nice pattern, something you did lickety split, and it's beautiful. And so the bottom line with this that if you continue to do something, even though it may not be what the instructor told you to do or wasn't what was prescribed, you still create a pattern, and that's really important. So I have a little space down here, and I'm going to, again, hold my pencil on the side, and I'm just going to make some figure eights. Okay, so what is she talking about? A figure eight? Okay, so I'm going to go just across my paper, and then I'm going to stop about midway, and I'm going to switch from whatever my dominant hand is to my other hand. Now this might be tricky. This might make you laugh. This might make you relax. So I know it's going to make me relax, and I have to make myself think, what am I doing? With my right hand, it comes naturally. So just warm up exercises to help you relax, to help your brain, and to have a little fun. Okay, we're gonna continue to move through these warm-up exercises. I'm going to flip my paper now. I've used a portion of it. And I want to you don't have to copy this word, but do so if you'd like. If you took this class earlier in February, or if you're familiar with Zentangle, you understand this idea. It's similar to what some people think of as an echo. Or, what do you mean, Stephanie? Okay, so say you drop a little pebble in the water. And what do you notice beside what emanates from the center is what we call in Zentangle an aura or an echo. So why don't you just allow yourself to do that? Throw the little pebble into the water and make some auras, make some ripples around it. You're just tracing the line that's already there. We call that aura. And in Zentangle, we say, when you're in doubt or you don't know what your next move is going to be, aura. You're just retracing what's there, creating this really beautiful pattern. And just do that a few times with these circles, or some of you are saying, well, mine aren't circles, they look flat, or they don't look like a circle. So that's why we also use the term orb rather than circle so often, because a circle implies perfection. And there's really nothing perfect about Zentangle. We're just the only thing that's perfect is your work. Your work is perfect because it comes from you. So just continue, a few more. And again, notice your jaw, notice your tongue. Is it really pushing into the back of your teeth? So let's practice this aura now a little differently. Let's make a curve, a long C, an inverted C. And let's just make some more auras across the page. Again, this is meant to go rather quickly. There's no right or wrong. It's just warm up and practice. You're just getting comfortable putting pen to paper. You're starting to figure out what's comfortable in your stroke. Do you like to draw out to in? Do you like to work left to right or right to left? You're just becoming familiar with what the pencil feels like on the paper. Okay, now let's change it up again. Let's put a dot here. I'm a right-handed person, so I generally work left to right, but by all means, you're going to figure out what works best for you. Let's put a dot. You can see it's not much bigger than the tip of my pencil. And now let's use this idea of aura. And let's go small to big. Let's just make auras. And let's just have them get increasingly larger. Notice that the space between my auras is about the same. Don't worry if yours is or isn't. You're just practicing this. You're just doing this. For some of you, you're just doing this for the first time. So just keep getting a little bigger and a little bigger. And now, whenever you're ready, let's go back. So let's start to reduce the size of the aura. As we continue to work, we're going to continue moving to the right, but the size of the aura will diminish. And now I'm going to get ready here to have a dot. And then I like to have a little smaller dots, and they just kind of go wherever I want them to go. And again, I don't know what yours looks like. It really doesn't matter. What probably matters most right now is that you're not judging yourself too harshly. If you think yours is really horrible, it might be a long hour for you. So try to give yourself a little space. It's okay. So somewhere along this fish, let's call this a fish. Let's do the same thing again, only we're going to make it smaller, start out getting a little bit bigger, and then somewhere start to make it smaller. This is just going to be a little fish. And then just let its tail go wherever you want. And do a few more. So you have an adult fish and some tadpoles, essentially. Just put down a couple dots and some auras, and they get larger, and then they get smaller. And just go with it until you end up with that dot and some smaller dots that are just seem to be floating away. And I'm just going to do one more. Again, just enjoy the experience as much as you can. If you have a question, by all means ask, because I don't want anybody confused. So I'm just going to pause and see if there are any questions before we get started on some of the actual paper that was in your kit. That's pretty exciting. You have some tiles to work on. If you have any questions so far, go ahead and ask me. Otherwise, we'll transition to So I'm going to move away from my sketch pad now to, I call this a tile. That's what we call these pieces of paper, tiles. And on the back side, it's as such. And don't worry, if you don't have this, just use whatever paper you have. And if you're wondering the size, this is about a 4-inch, I believe, 4.5 inch square. So that's how big we're working on here. So far, so good, everybody? Yeah, okay. All right. One of the guiding principles, I'll just say, or one of the essential components of Zentangle is this. It is putting in 4 corner dots. So using my pencil, and I'm just lightly on the side, way up here, somewhere in the corner, in the upper right corner, I'm placing a dot. You can see it's pretty small. And then I'm going to come down here a ways, and I'm going to put another dot. And then you're going to get to be an expert at this, because notice I write with my right hand and I turn my tile with my left. You're going to do this a lot tonight, probably. I hope you do. It'll make your experience easier. So I turn my tile and I'm going to add another dot somewhere down here in the bottom right corner. And then notice I'm using my left hand. It's just kind of a trick. And I'm turning my tile and I'm adding another dot. So if you don't like this idea, again, you don't have to do it. The whole notion is that it helps establish some boundaries. And for some people, this tile, the full size, is really overwhelming. We're just going to bring it down and have a nice little border. So when you're ready, everybody, I'm going to connect the dots now. We put down 4 corner dots, and I'm just going to make a vertical line to connect them. And your line doesn't have to be straight. In fact, I'm going to put a loop in mine just to show you that it doesn't have to be straight. You can make your line whatever you want it to look like. So maybe I'll do that around the rest. Heck, you don't even have to make any straight lines if you don't want. This is for you to decide. Moving now to the marker, I believe you all have in your kit a micron, and you see where I'm calling it 01. So what is meant by that is it's just referring to the size of the tip. It's pretty narrow, so no worries. And if you don't like it, I just suggest you get something that you do like, even if it's a ballpoint pen. Or if you want to stay with your pencil, you know, you just make yourself comfortable. That's really important. Okay, so we have this piece and we're going to be working in here inside. And what I'd like you to do now is we're going to split this into 3 by 3. So just eyeball it. I'm going to put a line, a little dot about 1/3 of the way, and another dot where I think it's 1/3 of the way. Again, it's not perfect by any means. We're just eyeballing it. Okay, and then where would that be? About right here. I just put a little dot down below. And I do the same thing over here. A little dot. And then when you're ready, like you did with corner dots, connect them. Draw a vertical line. Connect both of them. And so I'm going to do the same on the other side now. And I just want to eyeball, okay, where is about 1/3 of the way? And where would that be? Below, about right here. I just put a little landmark. That's all I'm doing. And another little dot over here. And another little dot here. And then connect them. Now a trick is start up here, but keep your eye on the bottom. If you have trouble, if you say, oh man, I never end up where I'm supposed to, just trust yourself and keep your eye on the bottom dot and you'll get there. That's a trick. You don't have to do it. So far, so good, everybody? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Next is you get to decide. In each rectangle, you're going to put a dot and you're going to darken it in. And it's going to be about the size of the top of a straight pin. So what do you mean, Stephanie? I mean, you just put your dot wherever you want it to be. And you can put them in any place, but put one in each square. And I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about where you want to put it. Because remember, whatever you decide will be perfect. Trust yourself, you'll be fine. And again, you know, you can turn your tile at any time. I'm going to constantly turn my tile. I like to work out to in. I encourage you to turn your tile as often as you want. You're just right now placing a dot in each rectangle. Each rectangle has a dot placed in some random spot. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute. I'm just going to give you a little piece of information and let some of you catch up. Maybe you're still putting your dots in. I'm going to write the name of this pattern. It really has a name. So again, you don't have to copy it if it's not necessary, but while some of you might be catching up, this pattern is called hypnotic. And if you went out on the web online, you could see several examples of it. I'm sure you'll find it easily. And good news for you is this. You really have practiced. When we were doing this warm-up, you were practicing basically what we're going to be doing tonight, with just a couple exceptions. So I'm going to show you, and some of you might be still placing your dots, that's okay. But I'm going to give you a couple samples of what I'm talking about. So I have a couple enlarged, and I aura until what happens, Stephanie, when you come to the edge? You stop and you continue where you think it would leave, where it would start again. And you fill the whole space like that. And so when you come to the border, when you come to the edge, the perimeter of that square, of that rectangle, then that's it. There's nothing more to fill in. And you do the same with each one. And sometimes people want to know, do I have to make my auras the same distance apart? No, you can vary. You can do whatever you want. Maybe you want to make your auras very close. Maybe you want to make some narrow, and then large. So I'm just showing you this as an example of how you can vary the auras, the distance between, and how that also creates its own pattern. And you could experiment with that. So if you're at a loss and you say, well, I don't know what to do, just go with whatever comes naturally. And don't get stuck too long wondering if you're doing the right thing, because you are. So you can mix them up. Each one can be different in the auras. But all you're doing is adding auras and stopping when you come to the edge and filling the space with auras. And again, as you go, turn your tile so that you can work with whatever is comfortable for you, with whatever pen stroke is comfortable. And if you haven't done this very much, you may not know. So you're just going to have to experiment a little bit. And some of you may have not used these markers before. And so the fine tip you may not like. So you might want to go to your pencil or to, like I said, some other marker that you're really comfortable with. And if you have a question, let me know. Otherwise, like you, I'm going to be filling in my squares or my rectangles with auras. And they're not going to be perfect. That's why we call them orbs. But the whole idea here is that this is your beautiful creation. I'm just giving you a few suggestions, a pattern, and you're going to do with it as you see fit, because you are the artist and you already know what's beautiful. And you can get really tight with the auras. They can be very close to one another, like I'm doing, or you can go wide, or you can vary, some of each. Whatever seems fun to you, you should do it. Whatever seems rebellious, you should do it. And if you really don't like what you have, you can start over. If you don't like the line you put down, you can go over it as many times as you'd like. Sometimes just retracing the line, redefining the line, giving it a little love, giving it some more attention. It's all it needs. Especially when you use a fine tip as these O1s have. Sometimes they just need a little more ink. So I'm just doing a little bit of this as I go as well. And another thing to keep in mind is, are you holding your breath? You know, are you really holding your breath, and are you doing an ab workout while you're supposed to be drawing and relaxing? So just a reminder to give yourself a little time to relax, to breathe, relax your jaw. It's all good. No mistakes, only opportunities. Just again, get comfortable with using the marker and turning your tile. Turn it so that it's easiest for your hand and your wrist. And then just enjoy. I was talking to a friend today, and she and I were talking about how so often when we start to draw, we put ourselves so much pressure on ourselves. We think that it has to be perfect. And so even if you think you're just a beginner, don't worry. We all put a lot of pressure on ourselves sometimes, thinking something has to be perfect. And in Zentangle, imperfection is embraced as much as perfection, or more than. There really isn't such a thing as perfection. The perfect thing is that you're drawing, that you're creating. That's the perfect thing. That you trust yourself. Sometimes as we work, we start to think, oh, next time I'm going to do, and I'm guessing that's already popping into your mind. Next time I want to. So if you have a sketch pad and you like to practice, you like to just sit down and let the lines start coming, that's often a good place to practice and see what comes. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Stephanie's been doing this for a number of years, and some of you, maybe this is the first time. So again, I don't want you to get discouraged by the fact that the instructor is finished with hers already. But I just want to show you, if you could give me your eyes for a moment now, when you do fill your squares, I want to give you a few suggestions. These aren't hard, fast rules, but a little suggestion about, okay, what could I do to give this some shading? And some people get really scared, or frankly, they freak out when they think of putting in shading because they think, oh, this is nice, but I'm going to ruin it. So we can just put in a little bit of shading, even if you're not quite finished. You can just shade some of the sections that you have. Okay, so the first thing is just, I'm going to start with my vertical line. I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite. Notice I'm holding it on the side like we did in the warm up. And I'm just pretty lightly just letting it move across the tile. You don't need a terrible lot. I mean, it's okay. Whatever you put down, you put down. Just move it across there. And do that across each set of lines that you put down here to get the 3 by 3. So the 2 vertical, and then we'll turn it and put a little graphite in. And you can see already by doing that, you start to notice a little depth in your piece. So just keep the graphite on its side. And if you're not comfortable with that, then forget what I said, just go lightly across in whatever way is easiest for you. And notice I'm just turning my tile all the time, turning my tile, because that's easiest for me. I like to draw from out to in, from away toward me, I like to draw. And that certainly may be just the opposite for you. Okay, let's go with the little white thingy that some of my students call it, the white thingy. Oh God. Okay. And this is called a tortillon or a blending stub, or whatever you've heard it referred to as. But again, like we use the pencil, I'm going to use this mostly on the side rather than pushing into, and I'm just going to move it along the graphite that I placed here, and it just smooths it. It's just like a magic wand. It blends it. It just spreads the graphite further away from that line that you drew. It just moves it along. It blends it. Look how beautiful that is. It's so soft and milky. So just trace all of those. Just rub it out. You can take it out as far as you like. I mean, I'm keeping it pretty narrow. And if you like more graphite, you like it darker, then go for it. And then just continue to blend all of these that we put down. It's like we made a tic-tac-toe board and we're just blending these. That's so beautiful. I hope that you're enjoying this as much as I am. So just blend those lines and you start to notice dimension, some depth in your piece. So I'm going to give one more suggestion, and for shading, for a little bit of graphite, and that would be a little bit here in the corners, just a little bit in each corner of the rectangle. Just a little bit is really all you need. And when you get to the edge, you can give it a little more. That's fine, because we'll blend that too. So the corners, just a little bit, just a little bit of rounding in the corner. And if you think about it, if you would be looking down over this, the corners probably would be a little darker anyway. There may be shadow there. So if you're wondering, how do I shade things? Where do I start? Sometimes corners are a good place to start. Just a little bit of graphite in the corners. But in Zentangle, we don't get too worried about the shading. We just say, put down shading where you want. Put down shading to emphasize another part, because whatever you make a little darker is going to highlight the lighter parts. We don't get too worried about a light source and the correct angle and so forth. That will come. You just have to get familiar with using the graphite and just adding a little dimension. So corners are a good place to start. And if you feel like you don't want to shade yours, you really feel like you might ruin it, don't worry. You don't have to. This is just a suggestion. So just a little bit along the perimeter, the outer edge, and a little bit in those corners. And when you finish with that, you're just going to take your magic wand again, the tortillon, and just smooth it, blend it. And perhaps I know I've missed a couple. You'll figure it out. You'll go back and get those areas that you missed. So just spend the next few minutes blending the corners a little bit. And if you have to add a little bit more graphite because that's what you like, great. If you don't want to add too much, no trouble, no worries. And if you're still really nervous, if you're doing it right, don't worry. Don't give yourself a stomach ache. It's just Zentangle. I'm holding the tortillon, the blending tool, mostly on the side, just inviting that graphite into the paper. I can always add more. You're getting the idea as you move it across the paper, how easily it is to move and add the gray, the graphite from corner further into the rectangle. So just play around with it, have fun. If you don't have a tortillon, you could roll a piece of paper that works kind of, but the best thing is just to use your finger and to blend that with your finger. That works pretty well. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to add what we refer to as your chop. It's just a symbol that you did this. Maybe it's your initials, maybe it's something else, but we're going to put it right on the front. And I'll show you what I use for my chop. It's not my initials, it's just a little movement of the pen that I like, that it indicates that I've done the work. And you really can put it anywhere you want. So I'm working my way through this. And again, no worries that if you're not this far ahead, I've done this several times. But I just want you to pause now, and I'm going to show you what I use for my chop. It's called a chop. I don't know exactly. I forget where it comes from, but somebody has told me many times and I forget. Anyway, I'm going to decide, okay, how do I want to place this? Where's it going to go? And I just use this movement of my pen. I just make that stroke, and that's my chop. And it doesn't have to be attached to this. It could be out here in the border, in the white edge, but I'm putting on my chop. And while some of you are still working, I want to show you one other option that you might want to go back and do. If I were going to add more to this, I would take my graphite and I would add a little graphite to the first aura, to the area surrounding the dot. Why? You might say, why, Stephanie? Just because that's me. And then I would just, I'm not putting graphite over the marker, over the dot, but if I get over it, it doesn't matter. It won't mess it up. So I'll just do this on this section so you can see. You have so many opportunities to make it your own and to try out something you like. And just noticing that by doing one tiny thing different, it creates a whole different look. To me, it looks like eyeballs. And then on this one, on this second section, I'm going to come back in on this narrow, on one of the narrow pieces. I'll just do this in one section. And I would add some graphite to the narrow parts. And of course, this may take much longer than the time we have this evening, but that's okay. You can play with it all you want. So again, just another option here as you might be finishing up, just so to give you ideas. And you can see then that I'm going to come back in and I'm going to blend these narrow strips, these little bands where I added the graphite. And look at here. It just gives it another look. So lots of options within this particular tangle that we call hypnotic. But the biggest thing is you have the basics. Now, I'm going to ask in a second if anybody wants to share theirs. We have a lot of people, but if a few people want to hold yours up, that would be fine. And then the last thing on the back is for you to sign it and date it. And you don't have to sign it, but just this is what this is intended for. Anything you want to put back here, whatever your signature would be, and today's date.
I didn't have
Okay.
the kit. I didn't have the kit, but I did a one here.
All right, there's one. Okay, very nice. Let's get the spotlight. There you go. Thank you. That was beautiful. Who was that?
That was me, librarian.
Okay, Angie, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead and put yours up if you want. No worries.
Can you see it?
Okay, I see Sylvie, yeah? Okay, let me put you on spotlight. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you, Sylvie. Very nice. Who
welcome.
else? Anybody else? Okay, I see Amanda. There, gorgeous. Look at that. Thank you so much for sharing. Who else wants to share? I might not be able to see you or hear you. So Debbie, okay, let's get up here. Come on, I'm not getting. That's beautiful, Debbie. I can't get you spotlit, but it's beautiful. Thank you. Okay. There's back to, so I got to go back here and get this back into. All right, everybody, you did great. And I thought that you should just take a moment and admire your work. I mean, I really mean that, because sometimes it's easy to say, yeah, but it doesn't look as good as the instructors, or it doesn't look as beautiful as so-and-so that just showed on the screen. But I really want you to give yourself just a moment, pause, and make space for yourself and for showing up and just taking the time to be present. I mean, that's really beautiful. So I'm grateful, and I want you to have that moment for yourself as well. Well, I won't, we probably won't finish this clearly. We have just about 10 minutes left, but I thought I would get you started with something and give you some choices and some ideas. And remember doing the auras in the family of fish, like the adult and the minnows, we'll say, the tadpoles. Okay, so you already did this, so you have done it. And what do you have in mind, Stephanie? Okay, so you have a few choices. You have a lot of choices. I just had a few ideas, okay? So here's my suggestion. On this, these are all suggestions, everybody. You could make an orb. Maybe you want to make a crescent moon, or a cloud, or a heart, or a flower, or maybe you just want a section out of a corner, or maybe you want something else. But I want you to put down in this some shape that has a center that's open, okay? So again, you might just want to use one of my ideas, but these are just my ideas. These might be really boring for you, and maybe you have some other thing that really interests you. So go for it, okay? Just don't spend a ton of time. Whatever comes to you is fine. Just get something on your paper, and we'll use the whole thing this time. We won't put in the corner dots and make a border. We'll leave that open. And you don't have to put it in the center, but you may. Again, it's your call. It's your art. Well, there's been a lot of rain and mist and clouds here, so seems like a cloud comes to my mind. So that's what I'm going to put down. And then I'm going to take the marker and I'm just going to go over it a little bit and retrace the lines. I'm just going to make it a little darker here. We call this redefining the line, you know, giving it a little more ink, giving it a little more love, however you want to look at it. Just making it a little darker, whatever you started with. And just turn your tile. You really can't make a mistake. It's all good. Now I'll lower this. Just redefine the line. If you have a thicker marker, or maybe you have a lot of these microns at your disposal, you could use a thicker tip. That would be another option. And sometimes it's nice just to retrace something. Feels good. There's no question about what's the next move. No pressure. You got it. That's a really nice thing about Zentangle. What's the next move? The next move is defined for you if you want it, but it doesn't have to be. So you're just going to take a few moments and redefine. And you can always come back and add more to this. Now the done until it's just done. You know, I think there's some sort of quote like that by some probably very famous person, very famous artist. But we're all artists, and we all know when our piece is done. It's done when we say it's done. And sometimes less is more, sometimes more is best. It's really up to you, you know. Okay, so I have my cloud, and it doesn't matter if what is up or down, but I have my shape. And now I'm going to take you back to what you already did. So don't freak out on me. Don't get up, don't get too anxious, because you already did. You made big fish and you made some smaller fish. And now you get to decide, okay, I'm going to let these fish move around, and I'm just going to let them have a school of fish. I'm going to start with that dot, and I'm going to make the auras, and I'm going to let them get larger, and then I'm going to let them get. I've got my fish coming, and then I just let that dot go. And I'm just going to let these fish, basically let the school of fish grow wherever I want. With this shape, I'm just going to let it grow around the shape. And you know, so Stephanie, what might my next move be? So if you're wondering what is the next move, maybe you just want to start right alongside it. And begin to make another. And you're letting your fish get wider. And then the size starts to reduce. The auras diminish in size as you move away. And it goes on. And some of you, if you have a lot of V's or little valleys, you could start with a fish in each of the valleys. If you're wondering where should I start, I'm not sure. And another place to continue to let the fish assemble or to let this school of fish grow would be right in here, right between the two that I already drew. I'm going to add another one. And you notice the spacing. You want to give yourself a little bit of space. And then here comes another fish. Same idea. It's going to grow. It's going to get a little larger. And then it's going to get, the auras start to diminish and they can go in any direction that you want. So I'm going to, and again, I just invite you to turn your tile frequently, and you don't have to work from right to left on this. You know, you may want to start on this part, and then you may want to go across to the other side and see what you put down and then come back. So just have fun with this. So it looks like we just have a couple minutes left. Would you like to see some example of one that I did? So you could maybe see how to proceed around the entire shape. Anybody want to see an example? Yeah, okay. So here's a heart, and you know, it's just going to take you a little while, but just have fun with it and let your fish move. Maybe you want to make them really large or small, and maybe you want the tails to move around. But you'll have time. You just have to take the time. I think some of you are going to spend the next hour working on this, probably, huh? If you're in the flow, you probably will. You'll probably be like me. I'll probably want to stay and finish this for the next hour, and then my husband will wonder why we didn't eat dinner. Does anybody have any questions here? Clearly, I've done all the talking, but I want to make space for anything that you might want to inquire about here.
Yeah, can we use colors?
Oh yeah, by all means. Yeah, that would be great. I would love it. I think you would love it too. So if you are taking any more of these classes that I'll be offering on these dates, you just register online. I would love it if you would bring any of this work that you've done tonight. If you did more work on it and you want to share at the very beginning, I would love to see that. And even if you don't want to share in the big group, but you want to send it to my email just to share it, I would love to see that as well. So there is my email in case you have a question or you just want to share some of your work. Sometimes people like to do that as well. They don't really like to share in the big group, but they still like to show their work.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
I was just going to mention to folks too, if they didn't hear it at the beginning, everyone who registers within the first 25 people for each night gets one free kit. So if you've already had yours and used it tonight, that'll be the one that you get, but we absolutely want you to come back for the future classes. But if you registered and did not get one, you can still pick it up at the recommendations desk. The April 13th event is open, so you can register for that right now. I know there's already a few people on there. And I just wanted to say that. Did you want to say anything more, Stephanie?
Oh, I'm just grateful for everyone who took the time to come, and it was wonderful. So thank you to all of you and to the library and Angie for getting everything connected for us.
Well, thank you very much,
Thanks, Stephanie.
Stephanie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. I look forward to seeing you all in April.